We see them a lot around Kildare, and especially up around Meath and Selbridge, and they're in Dublin jerseys. Young lads. Now they're going to play with the local clubs, and it's no harm maybe. But I prefer if they were Kildare heroes.
You can't join Kildare club if you wear a Dublin jersey socially. That happens in Meath as well. That happens in Meath as well.
It does, yeah. Now people get very upset, but I don't as much, because if a young lad's going to emulate Kieran Kilkenny and play with Selbridge to go on and play with Kildare, that's fine by me.
Wear what you want.
Wear what you want, exactly.
Yeah. The GAA Hour is sponsored by Paddy Power. For exclusive content from their GAA ambassadors and other high-profile contributors, check out news.paddypower.com.
So Alan Wood, I was reading the match report here. Johnny Doyle is in studio with Alan Brogan. Alan Wood took on Kill in the Kildare Intermediate Championship, and Johnny Doyle was front and centre. 0-7, 3 points from play in a 115 to 8 point victory. And here's me bragging about playing Masters at 41. And Johnny, you're still doing it for your club at 41.
I didn't even get a trial for Kildare Masters, which is they didn't even look at me that. Still kicking away for the club. Someone said to me last week, how are you still managed? I said, I have 3 small kids, so it's grand to get out to the pitch and do a bit, so still trying to plug away there.
Yeah, so that's it. So in 22 years you haven't missed a championship game for Alan Wood, and you never missed a championship game for Kildare. Now that's freaky. I don't care what anyone says. I nearly fell off my chair when I read that, for a man like me who's been riddled with hamstring injuries.
Yeah, and I'd love to tell you that's because I mind the body and I eat all the right stuff, and that's what I was thinking of as I put down my McDonald's meal. But no, there is a bit of freaky. There's a little bit of, I suppose at times there was a little bit of mind over matter in you were going out to, and it was the championship match. You said, look, it's sure, it's coming toward the end of the year, and you'll strap yourself up, or you'll get on with it. And I often think that players, maybe you disagree with me, but adrenaline is a huge thing. When you're in the zone and you're mad for a ball, you don't really. No, look, I didn't have any serious injuries that would have stopped me, but there would have been times maybe the leg was a bit dead, or there was little strains, or groin to be a bit tight or something like that. But you tend to just get on with it, and.
Yeah,
so
I got to 2012 without missing a championship match for Dublin. I think I missed the Laois. Did we play Laois in quarter final in 2012?
Yeah,
I think that was the first one.
Was that the time you collided with the post and hurt your back? Did you score a goal against Louth? Was it?
No, that was 03. No, I didn't miss anything with that.
Did you not miss anything with that?
No.
Just you got a good run of it then as well. It's very lucky, lads, because you talked to Paul Flynn here yesterday, and just know from my own career, I missed loads of Leinster finals with hamstring injuries. And I do take your point, Johnny, that adrenaline, I can't understand how anyone would miss a match with a dead leg, because that's just pain. Like, go out there and you'll get over that. But with hamstring muscle injuries, you're lucky you didn't get any of them, because adrenaline won't get you over them. You just can't play when you have muscle injury.
I felt that I was just lucky. And sometimes you'd be thinking about it, obviously there's something maybe in the genes. My dad played for the club for well into his 40s, and that was probably something in the genes. And then at the start of my career, like both club and county, was very little weight. You'd wonder, is all this weight training, is it putting extra pressure on I don't know, that's just maybe something that's going on in my head.
I think both our games were probably based a lot on evasion too. We didn't look for the big hits. Maybe Johnny a little bit more than I did, but I tried to stay away.
He was in the thick of it. Well, you see, you were faster, and you were fast as well.
No, not as fast as that lad.
But I tried to stay away from collisions, and I think that was a big part. And as well, I think, and like it applies to modern day players too, if you want longevity in the game, I think to play every year from the start of January to August or September, if you're lucky enough to do that for 10 years, is a long stint. You're going to pick up injuries at that, particularly with the weights now. So I think lads that are looking, like I missed lots of leagues, not lots of leagues, but towards the latter end of my career I missed 3 or 4 or 5 the start of league campaigns. So I think that ultimately helped along my career as well, because
you see, we can't really do that anymore. So I remember all the years where the big thing was like the likes of Darragh O'Shea. You'd all see them filtering in towards the last 2 or 3 games of the league, but you don't really see it, especially with Dublin. You just can't do it. It's impossible. And I think even in Kerry and the big counties, you're going to lose your position in these counties if like that day is gone, really.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe the structure of the championship has changed as well. Like, I would have been of the same opinion. You see lads filtering in, and you say, well, look at, maybe Kerry or Dublin, they know they're going to stay where they are in the league, and next they're getting ready for the championship. In Kildare, for us, the league was very important, because you were building, for me, and he was trying to hold a position, and you were building you were trying to build something different to bring that momentum from a league into a championship, because maybe you didn't have that I suppose tradition of that maybe the Dublins and the Kerrys had, where I always wanted to play in the Burn Cup, you know, because I wanted to nail down my position and make sure the manager knew that I was very committed, and you know, so it can change for it depending on where you're coming from. I think
and it depends if you got a new manager, then you have to start your Burn
start
Cup
fresh,
you have to impress him. But then if you've had a great championship season, you're like, well, I'm in here, I'll take it easy the start of next year. Maybe that was just my attitude, I don't know. So come here, the Leinster Championship is kicking off this weekend. So I don't know how you feel about the Leinster Championship. Like, I mean, Alan, you're one side of it where you win it every year and you've got them coming out of your bloody drawer at home. I don't know where you keep them all. How many have you got? 10, 11?
10 or 11 maybe, yeah.
10
but
or
look,
11.
It's like, my view on it is like, there's a few games to be played before anyone plays Dublin. Obviously teams are going to be, it's going to be tough for anyone to beat Dublin, but I think the likes of Kildare and Meath should certainly be targeting Leinster finals and having a good go at Dublin. I think both teams, when they have their full side out, and if they're drilled properly and they have that bit of self-belief, will have a chance. And I think if like, looking at Dublin now, the time, if a Kildare and Meath is going to catch them, it's earlier on in the year is the best time to do it. And like, I certainly think I wouldn't, like, it's going to happen at some stage. Dublin are going to be betting a Leinster Championship game.
Yeah, it's going to happen at some stage, but it doesn't look on the horizon though, Johnny. Like, I mean, let's be honest, I think Kildare are best equipped, but with their injuries, we'll talk about that in part 2. 2 years ago they performed well and still lost by 9 points. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was looking at the Leinster Championship, and in my head Dublin have been just dominating it for a long time, but they haven't really. It's been very uncompetitive since Jim Gavin took over. Yeah. But like, I mean, you won 5 in a row there, Alan, from 07 to... was it 05 to 09?
10, yeah.
Meath beat you in 10, but 05 to 09 they were hard enough. One, they weren't gimmies, and then in 11 you nearly beat them in a semi-final. So you only started getting it easy, I'd say, Alan, when Jim Gavin took over in 13. Then they started flowing, and which is probably 6 now. So, you know, I don't know.
Like in Pillars there, we had a couple of big games against Laois. Like, you were looking at, they were really competitive games. Full houses in Croke Park are 60,000, 65,000, not close to a full house. Kildare in 09 was nip and tuck. Kildare in 2011 was only the free at the end that Berno got. Like, that was like, there was nothing in that game. Yeah. And I actually watched some clips of both games yesterday. Like, and like, the football was excellent. I think if you look at the Kildare team now, some of the stars, the likes of Johnny that they had there, and even the likes of Eamon O'Callaghan stuff, like, the Kildare had some brilliant footballers that maybe they just don't have the same quality now. Yeah,
and that wasn't really seen as a golden generation for you, Johnny, was it? That was McGeaney. McGeaney gets maligned a little bit for his time at Kildare, but when you look at that, like, he should have beaten Dublin twice. Now, that was in the Pat Gilroy era, where maybe Dublin were trying to find an identity for themselves, but you were well able, and you should have beaten them or could have drawn with them in 11, lost by a point, and that was a very dubious free, and they won the All-Ireland that year.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, we did probably, you know, and maybe every team sees it, probably didn't have the bit of luck, you know. You can argue all day whether it was or wasn't a free. You ask Andrew McLaughlin and he'd swear on his life that he didn't touch it, but you know, so which you'd expect. But we were competing, and I suppose for the first time in a good few years, for me personally, we actually believed that we could really do something. I mean, you know, we were very unlucky in 11 against. I think at 11 was the pinnacle of us under Kieran. Right. Because we went against Donegal, and again very, very unlucky. Tomas Connor got a goal, came off the upright, and, you know, square ball, and then went to extra time. We should have went 4 points up in extra time, and then, you know, Kevin Cassidy kicks that monster. He mightn't like to say, and he probably hasn't kicked too many before or since. So we probably didn't get the bit of luck, but we were certainly competing at that stage, and we firmly believe we got to a semi-final in 10. But I think 11. And we probably regressed a little bit in 12. You know, just didn't. There was we'd won in under 21. There was a lot of that team, the Daniel Flynn's, Paul Cribbins, Tommy Mulix, this were coming on, and it was sort of a little bit of a rebuilding in 12 and 13, and then, you know, Kieran was gone then. So
he lost by one.
It's hard to keep it going if you don't get the break. Like if Kildare had won a Leinster Championship or even won one of those big games, it could have made a huge difference to the self belief in the squad. And there's no doubt. Like, that's what Kieran McGeaney brought. Was like, you look at the soccer last night, the last 2 nights, and that's those 2 wins just purely based on self belief, and that's what Kieran brings to the table. Yeah. And and like if Kildare had beaten us in 2009 or 2011, like the whole landscape could have been a lot different than what it is now.
It was 18 points from play in 2009 you got. It was 15 to 18 points. That was a Leinster final. I remember being at that.
Yeah,
and
and that was after we gave away a really bad poor goal. Barry Cahill, remember Barry Cahill? He just kept waltzed
early
through
doors,
and stuck it in the corners.
Yeah, we went 6 up. I think we went 1-3 up.
That's
1-3
right,
to nothing up. Like that was a soft. Well, it was a good finish by Barry, but he got through very easy.
Very easy, yeah. And then I think the second goal came in over the top, and Emmett Bolton or Jason Charlotte was just in behind Emmett Bolton and just landed in his chest, turning and buried it. Great finish.
Dublin getting goals in Croke Park, they really destroy you, don't they? Like, I mean, it's just, and you must think, like, I'm sure your team talks are like, let's get a goal. I remember playing against you in the Leinster final in 2007, and we were doing really well up until 20 minutes. I think we went 4 up, and then you got 2 goals just before half time. And I remember when the first goal went in, because there was 80,000 there, the noise in the stadium, my brain started to scramble. Like, my natural feeling was to go,
yeah.
But like I had to fight against that, and then you had maybe Paul Casey kind of jeering at you, and then you're looking around at your teammates, and it's like everything's just kind of, and then you got a goal 2 minutes later, and it's like we hadn't kind of got our minds back right at all.
That goal JO got in 2009, like we went 1-3 up in that. Kildare got back to 8 points to 1-3. Like I think he got 8 on the trot, and we were under serious pressure. And I remember I kicked the ball into JO, and I actually remember today I kind of kicked it. There was nothing on. It was a little bit out of frustration, and I just said I just launched one in here, and it landed perfectly for him, and he got us. It was a good finish by JO. In fairness,
we never recovered him. We put a massive effort into to going ahead, and all of a sudden against the run of play, as you said, it was another goal, and the place was.
Did you find when the place is hopping that it's hard to keep your concentration? You can see why teams, when Dublin get a goal on you, how they might get 2 quick points in.
Yeah, I suppose you play any team in Croke Park and play Dublin in Croke Park, and without getting into the dubs in the Croke Park debate that's going on seems to forever, but it's different. And what is different, what it is, I'm not sure, but there's just this, it's only like a swell of emotion, the whole place, and you're thinking, Jesus, we're under pressure here now, and and the chant is coming from the hill, and it's just different.
Well, look at that the other way. We played Kildare back then when you would have brought a huge crowd with you to a match like that, and with Kildare getting top, like
it's the same thing. No, it works both ways. It's just the roar from your fans, and I genuinely believe this, and this is what I said to Paul Flynn yesterday when Dublin play Mayo match Dublin with the crowd as well as on the field, so I think it makes a big difference, because you get a score, you get a huge cheer, and it's the effect it has on you, and the moralising effect it has on the other team.
And like, whether we like it or not, and everyone is different, and everyone, you talk about mental strain. I've often kicked frees and I have everything going on in my own head, but when you're kicking into the hill against Dublin, all that's going through your head is don't miss. Just don't miss, because you're gonna, that you're going to hear about it, and it's just different. And, you say you try to keep the routine the same, your number of steps back, and what's going on in your head, and but against Dublin it's a different condition.
I'm sure at this stage, with the whole performance psychology and stuff, managers playing against Dublin are when they're coming into Croke Park, they prepare their teams for that. I'm not sure, but I'm sure they
have to.
Like, I'm sure it's spoken about in the lead up to matches.
We didn't speak about that in 2007, I remember, because I didn't play in 2003 when we played Dublin. I hadn't been on the field since then, so I hadn't experienced that cheer and that kind of emotion of just the whole place just losing their minds all in the stands, and you're on the field, and natural thing is we just looking around at each other and wondering now get back down to business. I wasn't mentally prepared for that. I was trying to figure this out in my head on the field, you know what I mean?
The whole psychology thing has probably moved on a bit from them, so I'd say that sort of detail is covered a bit more in depth now with performance psychologists or whatever. But it'd be interesting to know teams that have played against Dublin, how they do prepare for that.
It's that whole thing, and I suppose it's that whole thing when you can see the goal go down injured or something, but then that can be hard because you can't communicate with each other, obviously, in a packed Croke Park. That's gone.
And normally these conversations, they happen after the game. It's like this, why didn't you pull him down? Sure, if I knew he was going to stick in the back of the net, I would have pulled him down, but you know
we've done in the early days when we were 2011, 2012, I can't remember what year, but the whole visualisation around coming out onto the field, the anthem playing, walking around the pitch for the parade and stuff, how you prepare for that. I remember Tommy Lyons used to say, just put your eyes on the crest in the back of the jersey and focus on that, no looking up into the crowd.
Really? Because I used to like looking into the crowd a little bit. That was kind of, I don't know, I just like to get my bearings around and get that out of my system rather than do it during the match. I used to use the parade just to kind of relax.
It's a bit military to stare at someone's back as I suppose it's nice to enjoy those moments as well.
I think you do have to enjoy those moments. But then there was 2011. That was the big Andrew McLaughlin, Bernard Brogan thing, and like you said, that was kind of the peak Kildare under McGeeney, and he was gone after that one. But then, I suppose I think it was 2012. Then did Wexford get close to Dublin, Alan, and then he started taking off. And now, the point I'm trying to make is, a lot of people are talking about championship restructures and tier twos and everything. And for me, the big problem is the Leinster Championship and the Munster Championship. And Connacht is decent. And then again, in Connacht, you still have maybe 2 or 3 Division 1 teams playing Division 4 teams. So it is skewed. My whole idea is just keep the provinces, because you'll never get rid of these provincial championships because the provincial councils hold too much power, and they'll never get rid of them. So why don't we keep them, but pull them out and have them as standalone prestigious cup competitions and promote them, but then start your All-Ireland from scratch then at a fairer All-Ireland level. Do you know, that seems to be the fair solution to this, because the provinces are what feeds into the inequality and the kind of one-sided games. We'll go through the games later on in part 2. They're all easy predictions, lads. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a strong team against a weaker team.
Yeah, and look, with all due respect to the teams that are playing this weekend, there's no hype around the start of the football championship at all. And that's a sign of what's happened. I completely agree with you. I think there should be a tiered championship, and the Dublin Club Championship has gone now to A and B Championship. They split it 2 years ago. It hasn't worked out well for my own club in the last couple of years, but it's made for a more competitive competition. There was big victories 3-4 years ago.
Too many. You had 32 senior teams, but at club level is the perfect example. You're at intermediate level.
Yeah.
Do you complain that you're not at senior level? No, you're at intermediate level, and you have to get to senior level. The blueprint is there at club. They just won't copy it.
It's actually more enjoyable, because we had a good team sort of late 90s and into the mid 2000s. Playing 3 county finals, 1-1 for a small village was good.
You won a Leinster too, didn't you?
No, we're beaten
in Leinster.
Leinster. I think he won the final that year in 04. Screen beat us, and he beat Screen.
We
in the
beat
final.
Screen in 04. Yeah.
But I suppose then we went for a real. Every year was just hold our status, hold our senior status, and eventually in 2017 we were relegated, and it was, now we're back playing intermediate, but it's more enjoyable because we
training to win something.
Yeah, we realistically are in the top 4 or 5 intermediate teams, or you like to think we are anyway. And there's an opportunity. And do I get more enjoyment if it was a senior championship? Not really, because you're still there, a group of lads striving to win at the level you just happen to be at the time. Would I like to win that and go on and be competitive at the next level? Of course you would. But you have to crawl before you walk,
Yeah, I saw Terry Hyland talking about a 2-tier championship, and he says, I have an issue when they talk about a 2-tier championship, because if we get rid of it, we don't call it an All-Ireland anymore. And that's bullshit too, because an intermediate county title is a county title. It's that level. Who's to say that a Division 2 All-Ireland title, it's an All-Ireland title. There's only 2 All-Irelands to win. There's Division 1 All-Ireland and Division 2 All-Ireland, and you've won an All-Ireland. A junior county title is a county title. You know what I mean? You don't call that something different than the senior just because it's at a lower level.
Yeah, I think it's the whole prestige around it, the coverage it gets in the media. We can still, and without being disrespectful to anyone, I'll use Kildare, we'll go and look at Kildare on TV, and if they're playing in the second tier championship, will they get the same exposure? Probably not. And I think that's a little bit of it. We look at Patrick's Day and we look at the top 2, we watch Curra Finn, but could you name who won the intermediate? Probably not, even though it's still an All-Ireland club title at intermediate level. And unless it's someone from your own county or some county player is playing with them, we probably don't remember who won it. So it doesn't get the same prestige, and I think that's a lot of the issue.
Yeah.
So if they're committed to saying, well, look, there's tier 1 and tier 2, and we're going to show the same amount of matches, because if Kildare were playing Longford on it, we'd all sit down and watch it, or if Kildare, whatever teams were playing, because it's a game of football and we want to see who's playing, and I think that's the big issue.
Yeah, and is that a big issue, do you think, for supporters or players? Because do players, I saw Kieran Deely was tweeting, now he was tweeting after the Galway game, the London manager, who probably picked a bad time to be tweeting about this because they almost beat an All-Ireland contender arguably, but he's a big advocate of a B championship. Now they performed well against Galway, but in general they lose or whatever. But he was saying that he tweeted. He says, "Am I missing something here? Have we all gone mad that showing clips on the Sunday game has become more important than a chance to win games? We need viable games and more of them." So, he's talking about hearing some manager talking about getting no TV coverage or whatever. I don't remember any panel I was ever on, Alan, talking about TV coverage. I remember talking about, when it came, it was great. Or if you heard that the game's on telly, there'd be an extra buzz around the squad. You mightn't talk about it too much, but I think that's, even, I'll go to you, Johnny, because you were talking about it. I think it's a more supporter thing rather than actual player thing, would it be?
Yeah, it is, but it's also, it's the brand. I mean, when I suppose the GAA bug really hit me, I was around 8, 9, 10 years of age when I really got into it. And, at that stage, I don't think they even showed provincial finals on the telly. It was just All-Ireland semi-finals and finals. And the big team at the time were Cork and Meath, or you're talking about 87, 88 time. And I fell in love with Larry Tompkins because I saw him on the telly. And a lot of the reasons I was kicking frees in the garden was because Larry Tompkins was Kildare, and he was the free taker, and we could watch him on telly. Now at that time, asked me a Kildare player, and I probably would have struggled. And I think that's some of the reason.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
that we want to emulate, and we want the brand. You want to go down and see young kids in Laois wearing the Laois jersey and saying, I want to be Donny Kingston, and I want to be, and if we see them a lot around Kildare, and especially if around Maynooth and Selbridge, and they're in Dublin jerseys, young lads. Now they're going to play with the local clubs, and it's no harm maybe, but I prefer if they were Kildare heroes.
You can't join Kildare club if you wear a Dublin jersey socially. That happens in Meath as well. That happens in Meath as well.
It does, yeah. Now people get very upset, but I don't as much, because if a young lad's going to emulate Kieran Kilkenny and play with Selbridge to go on and play with Kildare, that's fine by me.
Wear what you want.
Wear what you want, exactly.
Yeah. But that's it. So that is a good point, Alan, because how can you obviously have heroes from your own county if you don't see them? Now you could say you can go to the games, but I do take Johnny's point. I think the GAA, if they're serious about a tier 2, obviously it will say, okay, RT and Sky, you're our primary media partners. You can have your pick of the Division 1 games, but we're going to sell these to Air, Virgin and TG Cahir, and the tier 2 is on the television as well. I think that's a solution, because there is that fear that the second 16 is just going to be forgotten about.
I think there'd be loads of interest in it. I think people want to see competitive games.
But if it's not on telly, though, that's the problem. They just need to sell it better.
Yeah, but that's a matter for the GAA, and I'm sure if they all get in a room together, they can come up with a solution for that, and they can make it part of the rights for the Tier A games that you have to show the Tier B games. There's loads of ways around that. I think a lot of it to do for managers or players or supporters that are against it is around the history of the whole Sam Maguire thing and stuff and I think if they implemented the B Championship now and we look back in 10 years time, when there's a bit of history behind the B Championship, I think teams, and it's a bit like the intermediate thing, when you see a team win an intermediate championship or an intermediate All-Ireland, sure, it means the world to them.
Oh yeah, it's an All-Ireland. It's an All-Ireland.
It's a big sea change. It's going to be a big sea change the year it's implemented, but I think once we get over the first year of it, I think it'll be an absolute no-brainer, and it has to come. There's no doubt about it.
And I know we're calling it B here, but I don't think we should even call it a B, because there's a stigma around being on the B team. Whereas if it's a Division 2, you don't mind being in Division 2, but you don't want to be on the B team. Even small things like that. And it has to be called an All-Ireland, because calling it a Tommy Murphy Cup, that's no disrespect to Tommy Murphy, but it's just what's that? It has to be an All-Ireland. You have to call it an All-Ireland.
They did something similar with the Premiership. It was Division 1, Division 2, and now the Premiership, and it was the
Championship.
Yeah, the Championship. So it's there's loads of ways. There's loads of ways around it, but I still think that the whole prestige, and even and again we can use any kind of, but even for Leitrim people to go to and come back, and maybe you're looking forward to the Sunday game and seeing the team, and maybe have recorded on head, we'll watch it again on the Monday evening. That builds the whole thing around Leitrim, or whatever the county is, and that was our experience. I mean, even when Kildare were really going well back in '98, and you'd be tearing out of Dublin to get back for the Sunday game, and then you'd watch it, you'd be watching again, and how the Martin Lynch player and just Glenn Ryan, that was brilliant, and that was all part of what we wanted as young lads, wanted to achieve and wanted to be part of that.
Yeah. I remember you'd be coming back, and you'd be back for the Sunday game, you'd be out drinking back in those days, you'd be in the pub, but it'd be on in the pub, and then everyone
Yeah, exactly.
The leash part is on. Like, I mean, it used to be the whole pub would shush up just to hear what kind of clip we were getting on. So I suppose it is important. And the Sunday game is a poison chalice because, like, I mean, if they have 16 games to show in 2 hours and then hurling as well, it's impossible for them. Like, they've got an impossible job to keep people happy.
But even a simple thing like, you know, to show the game, if it even was deferred by a few hours, or to show a championship game on a Wednesday evening or something like that, you'd sit down and you'd be flicking through. I often flick through the channel, nothing on the telly, and you might see something on TG Cars. Oh yeah, who's playing? It could be a junior game somewhere, or you know, but you'll watch it because you have an interest in the game.
There's just not enough on.
There's not loads of opportunity for midweek shows and stuff in the GA.
It's the way they sell the highlights rights, which I have a huge problem with as well. Poor RTE. I don't often say that, poor RT, but they've only got highlights rights for Sunday night. Imagine that. So even if they wanted to do a Monday game where they could do hurling that night and only football Saturday night and alternate them, they don't have the rights for the Monday. Isn't that bizarre? Like, what kind of a deal is that? Like, and how would they stand for it?
And like, you could understand. Like, sometimes you'll hear the debate about the, you know, it's all about bums on seats, and if the show Laois and Clare, it'll affect the crowd. But showing that the night after is not going to affect the crowd.
No. It's just going to add to the promotion of it. Like, I mean, there's no doubt about that. What do you think of Paul Flynn's recent comments, lads, about the semi-professional game? So he's quoted as saying, the amateuritis of the GAA is important, and it's important to our members. However, at the same time, when we ask our members, we constantly survey them on issues, semi-professionalism is something that they would be interested in. There's an important distinction between that and full-time professionalism. Like, I mean, I've been saying this for a long time. So professionalism is not going to happen. You're not going to have your day job as that. But like semi-professionalism could be a situation where at the end of the year, you're given some money from the gate receipts that you're directly responsible for. It doesn't change anything about the game. You know, the ethos, you have a job, you go, nothing changes, only a player gets a handshake at the end of the year and saying, here's 5,000 for a holiday. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? As a reward, because we know only the big teams get holidays. So my point on this is that everybody gives out about professionalism in monetary terms. But when you hear supporters talking about, oh, well, they have a great professional setup, or the players are getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning and then they're spending 35 hours outside of their job a week on it. So nobody cares about that professionalism, the preparation professionalism. But the minute you mention a few quid at the end of the year, it's like, that's professional. You can't have it both ways. The game's gone so far now. What do you think, Alan?
Yeah, like it's a brave statement from Paul and the GPA, because it's the first real time, and they're certainly not. There's no hiding behind it. Look, like when I look back what I play, players are now making decisions to defer going to work, staying in college longer. Like I started accountancy exams after we finished our degree in finance. I did 3 exams and then I said, this is going to interfere with my football, and I packed it in. So that sort of stuff is happening now. No one hears about that, but then guys hit 30 or 32, and they're starting families, having to get mortgage and stuff, and they're behind the curve a little bit compared to maybe guys they went to college with that kind of went into work. So it is affecting lads later on in life. Now some lads do okay, but you can be sure it's affecting lads later on in life, and they have to go to work and they have to get mortgage and stuff. But I think a way around, and the GPA approached it a few years ago, was around tax credits at the end of the year or whatever. So if you're included in a championship panel or a league panel or whatever, you get a certain amount of tax credits back at the end of the year, and at least you're getting something back that as a bit of a reward for giving your time.
Yeah, that's from the government. That's the same as the grants, football. Pretty much, you know. Yeah, but like
similar to that.
The idea that the GAA would give players money seems to be a complete no-no.
Yeah, I suppose it's easy to say, and look, we all played the game, and if someone handed you a €500 at the end of the year, or 5,000, you take arm and arm. You know, we're all human.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's very easy to say that, but if you have to play, you've a panel. Most panels now are 35. And you were to give every player what's the figures around that? Where does it fit in? I don't know the answer to those questions, and it sounds lovely. But it has to be viable, and maybe you'll tell me it is. I'm not sure, but I certainly think from as Alan did and as alluded to as well, and I think this is where the GPA really really do well is a support for the player, and a lot of players avail of it. I know I didn't, and it probably was only it was only getting in its infancy when I. But if a job got in the way of my football, I got rid of the job.
Well, that's it. That's the reality of it.
And that's it. And look, it ended up, that it worked out. I'm employed now, and I'm living at home.
You're working for the GAA.
I'm working for the GAA, exactly. But and it has worked out. But it easily went belly up, very easy.
Yeah.
And you make great contacts in the GAA, and that also helps. But you do really need your head screwed on to be able to balance, everything, that you can look after your football career and look after your professional career, and that's where some lads struggle. The semi-professionalism, I'm not so sure. I would love a case where, anyone that played in the championship, that there was even a team holiday, that you didn't have to go out and sell photos if you were lucky enough to win, or get into a boxing ring or whatever. Now that can add to team morale and all that sort of thing as well. But just to say, look, at the end of the year, head away, we're going on a group holiday. Look, we went away a couple of times, and we did the best thing we ever did in life. Even something like that, players get huge benefit out of.
Yeah, for every county. I suppose it's I don't know. I think it's a pretty easy fix. Players get expenses every month anyways. But they're travelling expenses that they deserve. But at the same time, at the end of the year, I think that if it's gone to 35 hours outside of your job, Alan, and I agree. I was in a finance job for 7 years that I hated, and I didn't have motivation to get out of it until I finished playing. And I actually sat down and went, Jesus, I don't have that distraction anymore. So will I change it, or will I just go drinking every night?
There's loads of lads in that situation that don't want to change jobs because they think, if I go to a new job, I have to prove myself, work a bit harder, and it might affect me football. So no, I'll just stay where I am.
Because you can't stay late in a job, really, as an inter-county player. You have to be out the door at 5, and you have to have a boss that understands that. Johnny Glynn's boss in America is allowing him to come home to Ireland. If your boss, another big thing is your boss isn't a GAA person, you might have to change jobs as well.
Yeah, no, and if you go into the big accounting firms, or you're a guard or whatever, and those days are gone when a guard can say, I have to go training, lads, will someone cover for me? So it puts a lot of stress and strain on fellas. So I think it does have to be looked at, because it's a different world now than what we lived in even 10 years ago or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it is going to affect lads later on in life when they finish playing. They don't realise it now. There's lads, I know lads, I won't mention any names, lads who qualified teachers have went into jobs, left the job because it was affecting, now sub-teaching just to get a bit of cash to keep himself going at 26, 27, 28 years of age. And it's not right in the long run, because it will come back.
And it shortens your playing career as well, because it's just I always found that we were very lucky in Kildare, because even, we were close to Dublin, an hour nearly have you back to train, but you'd often think of lads coming from Donegal and going to Kerry to work, and it's massive.
I used to complain about the traffic on the M50 going from Castlelock to Ballymun, and
I actually
the lads going to Donegal.
Yeah, Colm Parkinson told me, he's a pundit on the hurling show, and he was like, well, I come from Ballyboden to the north side, and on that M50, I'm not far off what you would be down to Portlaoise. So you always think the Dublin lads have no commute, but it's not all,
I know, when you hear lads going to Donegal and back to Galway.
Well, the Mayo one is the big one, the Mayo have so many lads in Dublin, and that is a big problem. But anyway, so I think we're all, we're inter-county players, we'll take the semi-professional. It's not a debate here.
Once the back tax it,
they can put it back. What else did I want to talk about? Here's Liam Kearns. He's talking, and he's usually good copy, and he said that we probably play too much football. We're probably too honest if we're going to have to address. We're probably too honest, and we're going to have to address that. We've suffered for it over the last number of years. We keep playing. We don't resort to cynical tactics. And we all played across the era, lads, when the game changed. And I'm not afraid to say Armagh changed it. Tyrone were very quick to copy them. I remember talking in leash training amongst each other, going, lads, why are we not blocking their runs the way they're blocking us? Why can't we be like them? Why can't we be cynical? Or when they fall on the ground, let's us drop down the knee on top of them. They're doing it to us. I'm sure you had these same conversations, but I'm surprised Liam Kearns is having that conversation in 2019, because I wonder what cynical play is now, because the blocking runs has to be gone. The dropping the knee, you see at the odd time, all right, that players would. I wonder what are they telling each other to do now, Alan?
Yeah, that's not dropping a knee into someone isn't something I'd say that's disgusting and interesting as being cynical. Stuff like slowing down frees and stepping across frees, that sort of stuff I think is what, and that's part and parcel in GAA. It's part and parcel. I saw loads of it in the soccer matches over the last 2 nights where somebody steps across a free to stop being taken quickly, and Like, I'd be surprised, like a manager or a team that wants to succeed at inter-county level has to have some. It's not dirty. It's like there's a difference between being dirty and being cynical.
It's called streetwise.
Streetwise. You have to do it. The best teams do it, and if you don't, you'll be found out.
Do you find yourself as being a bit naive? I kind of have a memory of us in Kildare being maybe a bit too naive.
We were a lot more naive than you were, Willie. I actually think I've never been in a dressing room where lads would tell you to, all right, certain lads would be good at it, and I think it was more down to the individual.
It's unsaid though. It's unsaid.
Yeah, it is unsaid.
It's unsaid by the manager. I would say he doesn't want to get his hands dirty with that, but he wouldn't discourage it. If
if it felt that the ball was there and you weren't going to win it, you'd often hear, the Kerry lad maybe come knees, the whole lot come into and it drive you forward, and that's but that's that winning mentality. That ball is there, and if you're in my way, and so I think certain lads just had that in them, that I certainly didn't think I had it in me. I just played the ball, played it, and if I was good enough, I got on top of my man. If it wasn't, he came out on top of me. But from a cynical, I always felt if a lad used to come too close to me before I took a free, and maybe shout, watch the post, or it's going wide or something like that, put me under pressure, and I often did it to the opposition. Now, is that cynical? Yeah, of course it is, but that was because it put me under a bit of pressure, and I've often done that. I'd run in, I get the referee to move me back a little bit, just to maybe put a little bit of pressure on the free take. So that's cynical.
It's cynical. That's a bit of
the
trash talk.
If somebody stepped across in front of me, just kick it as hard as I could at them. So you try to get the 10 yards. Yeah,
you did that on a regular basis, but if you miss him, then you could look at it. It could come off your boot. But that's you drive it up his backside, right? Don't you? And that's kind of because he's just walking across. I don't know. I know that when under Pillar, the big Battle of Omagh, ye put a lot of thought into how to become a bit more like Tyrone and Armagh, didn't you? It was a little bit like that you, and it shouldn't really be. You shouldn't have to, but you did feel that you had to psychologically be doing the same things they were doing.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say Mickey Hart ever said to anyone in the Tyrone dressing room to go out and be dirty. They had a couple of lads that were probably good at it and just did it naturally. There was an 8, but I, like when we spoke about, say, walking across free kicks or slowing play down, I struggled at it because my mind would be in the game, and you have to be very cool on the field when you're in the heat of battle to think of something like that as soon as the referee blows his whistle for a free. It wasn't something I was particularly good at, but some lads are just so cool on the field. Like if you take Philly McMahon or even the likes of Keane O'Sullivan, they're so calm and collected on the field that they can make those decisions. Ger Brennan was another one. He'd always make a decision like that. He'd just step across a free and slow the whole thing down. They were brilliant at it. But
and what about block and runs? Because I think Armagh were the first one I kind of came across where you give a ball, you're not getting that 1-2. You're just somebody's coming across that. They're maybe walking across your support run.
The checking was a huge
huge
scourge in the game, and I think in fairness the black card has nearly completely ruled that out at this stage. Like when we talk about the black card, that's probably the one single greatest benefit of those rules coming in was cutting out the checking in the game.
And so Geezer then, when he came in to manage you, wouldn't have taught you the art of the checking the run, Johnny. I'm amazed by that.
Come on, Johnny.
He brought us into the ring, all right.
He gave you a much harder edge now than you would have had in the early noughties.
Yeah, he would have always said, whatever happened, we stuck together and we didn't step back from anything. And I think that's fair enough, and we would have had individuals like, you think of like a Brian Flanagan, Darryl Flynn, big physical men that wouldn't step back.
Flynn, he definitely didn't want. He got sent off more than any other player.
Like Rowley was a big man, Dermot around. Big strong men around the middle, and that so we had some of them individuals in the team. Like there was no point me going into to have a word with Darragh O'Shea because he'd only laugh at you, because you just didn't do it. But we had lads that were able to do that, and I don't ever remember Geezer telling us to be cynical but he certainly would have said, you look after yourself and you look after the lad beside you, and you shake hands after the match regardless of what happens, but you go out to win and to do the best you can, and if that meant that you had to meet a lad head on, well, you met him head on. Don't shy away from it.
Yeah,
and that's certainly. And we probably did have that edge, but I still think it was the individuals we had, collective individuals, probably at that stage. Like that team around 98, 2000 had loads of like Glenn Ryan, Willie McCreary, Martin Lynch, Brian Lacey. They were strong physical men, and they didn't shy away from it. But every county had them.
You have to have the players. You're right. You can't change a player that's not used to it or not comfortable with it to be like that. You just put them off their game, wouldn't you?
Laois would have had it, but I remember years ago looking at that game Leinster with Laois and Louth, that brawl.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
Barney Marnie, these lads were just
they were hard. There was a lot of hardy hooers on that.
Yeah, when you see someone that when you see someone that it doesn't come natural to doing it, you can see it's not natural. You can see it a mile away,
and they're almost embarrassed or a bit shy.
They're not comfortable with it. So there's certain guys just have it and are comfortable in that zone, and there's other guys that it's just not for them. Yeah.
Okay, right, last one, lads, is Paul Mannion did a piece. Paul Flynn was talking about this yesterday. He did a piece with Malachy Clerkin at the weekend, and I was reading it. And he's a vegan, so he's the first GAA player I've come across as a vegan. Typical Southsider, Alan. You wouldn't catch a Northsider going down that road, like the typical. But it's obviously very difficult to get protein into your diet, into your body as a vegan. There's some protein in some plants. It's unusual for an athlete maybe to go vegan. It's the first I've heard of, really.
Yeah. Like, it's funny, my wife would say to me we'd have a vegetable pasta bake or something, and I'd be like, it's not a dinner if there's no meat in it.
And I won't change that opinion for anyone. Basically he's a vegan. It was an interesting interview is because he's obsessed with climate change and he worries about it a lot. And obviously there's some scientists that think that cows and animals, cows especially, when they're digesting their food, I think they belch out a gas that's harmful to the ozone layer. Now there are other scientists that don't believe that, which I like to believe. I like to believe those.
I think it's fairly clear. It's very clear that there is an issue there with the amount of meat we eat, and we're eating way too much. Is it going to stop me eating my steak? Probably not. But I don't get steak every day. It's not like you will eat.
Well, that's it. Well, I'm looking forward to one tonight, actually, which will be Thursday. I'm a creature of habit every Thursday night. But anyways, we're not going to get into that. But so he wanted to make a change because he was always going on about this climate change, and his friends were saying to him, stop going on about this. What do you actually do to help it? And this is why a lot of people are turning vegan, is because they want to, it's their carbon footprint or whatever. Now, again, I wouldn't do it. I like to believe the scientists that don't think cows have any bother at all about the ozone layer. But again, he must have to take protein shakes, and then to get the protein, because he's a huge man now, and he's done a lot of strength and conditioning, and you're at nothing really on a strength and conditioning program now without having some protein kind of boost, Alan, or else you're just going to have to eat 20 eggs in the morning, these kind of diets.
Paul's, he's obviously a very intelligent fella, and it's good to see. I read the interview. It's good to see something in a GAA interview that's maybe discussing in somebody's personal life or outside of the football pitch. So I found it very interesting. It's like, I suppose from a football perspective, talking to nutritionists over the years, meat was always a huge part of a balanced diet. So I'm sure he sat down with the nutritionists if you can't eat meat now, and they're supplementing with some sort of protein-based plants or
you have
protein
to
shakes or something.
Eat a wheelbarrow full of asparagus or something.
Doesn't look to be affecting him too much anyway, in fairness to him.
Seems to be alright. No, definitely. Well, we haven't seen him this year. He started last December, which would have been after the club, right? So it would have been after his unbelievable club form. So he was still on meat then. Yeah. So he's unproven on this vegan diet, lads. This is up for debate.
Well, you know what's going to happen if he's two bad games in a row. The vegan diet will be getting the blame, getting back on the stakes.
Come here, one more thing he said that I thought was interesting. He was talking, and his development, obviously, he was being played as a working wing forward, and which he didn't think he was, which he's probably not. He could do a job there if he wanted. But he said he was getting a bit tired of this. He didn't see himself as a wing forward, and I was thinking in my head, reading as like, geez, I wonder who he said it to or whatever. So he said, I said it to Jason Sherlock, no surprises there. So he didn't want to say it, obviously. I'd say it to Jim Gavin. I know you guys this is what he said to Jo. He says, I know you guys kind of find me able to play both, that's corner and wing, but I don't feel I'm being considered as an inside forward, which is what I want to be. And he was like, you can do both, you can work hard, that's a big plus. I was just interested to think, there'd be no approaching Jim Gavin about that, though, would there, Alan? You'd have to go to Jo, who'd be your friend, friendly, and maybe hope he might plant the seed into Jim, or how would you go about? How would you go with Jim Gavin?
I think everyone in the team is expected to work. We've seen Paul obviously put in some huge tackles, but like, my thing coming out of that is like, who'd want to be an inside forward now? Like, I'd be happy enough playing out in a half forward line. Like, if you look at Paul Mannion now, if Paul Mannion played as an inside forward, say when myself and Johnny started, because he's absolutely electric.
Yeah,
he'd be like he is top class, but he'd be a superstar if he played corner forward 10 years ago because of the space he would have had. And he is, like, I would have always seen him as a corner forward. He's a good finisher. His pace, and particularly since he's come back from China, I've always seen him as an inside forward. I was surprised to read that about that he
had to go to them to say
because I always would have seen him as an inside forward, as opposed to, like, when I think a working half forward, you think the likes of Paul Flynn, and you wouldn't kind of equate Paul Flynn and Paul Mannion together as a similar type of footballer. But like, I think everyone in that team is expected to do their dirty work, whether they're corner forward or half forward.
Definitely. He reminds me a little bit of Mickey Linden in that he's an out and out number 13 for me, and he comes in on the left, and you know what he's going to do, but he's just so fast there's nothing you can do about it.
He's unbelievable to get a shot off so quick. You know, like, you think he's definitely going to turn onto his left, but like that, it's just gone, and he's so accurate. He's playing amazing football.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. Right, that's it. So you have to go to JO, basically. That's what interested me about this. So, like, I mean, I don't know, you couldn't go straight to Jim. Is that, like, could you say to Jim, I don't see myself as that position, or do you think that Jim is going to go, hey buddy, you're getting too big for your boots there? No,
Jim would have a conversation about it. I think. I don't even remember Paul lining out wing forward though. Maybe he did he?
He did. To be honest, it's hard to tell in the modern game anyways.
Like, I mean, he said half forward a couple of times, did he?
He did. He was playing half forward for a few years there.
I get it hard to believe, and I spoke to Jim Gavin once
while you were there, actually, Alan.
But I get it hard to believe for someone that's, you know, managing Dublin, such a successful team, that he wouldn't have the man management skills that you could have that conversation with him. You might like what he comes back to you with, but I couldn't see him saying, "Oh, listen, you know, you play where I tell you, or if not, get out of here."
Look, I like to build that up about Jim. I'm sure he's not like.
I wouldn't see it. You know, most managers will have this honest conversation. If you want honesty, you may accept honesty back, and that's where some players struggle. You know, tell me what I want to hear now, but most managers won't. They'll say, "Look, we're having you playing you here. This is the reason why. Get used to it."
Yeah, like, I think any management team has kind of different personalities in it, and some guys in the team might know one member of the management team a bit better than the other, and you might be a bit more comfortable going. Like, it's not easy to go to a manager Jim Gavin's stature either, or any manager, and have a frank conversation. You might have found it easy, you know how that ended up in a row anyway. But I think some guys might be just easier going to somebody else in the management team, one of the selectors, rather than going straight to the
you put the feelers out.
I'd say that's all it's in it.
Alright, okay, we'll come back and we'll do Paddy Power predictions. Alright lads, Paddy Power predictions. We'll have to fly through these because you were in great talking form in part one. First up is Wicklow, Kildare. Johnny, it's a good place to start with you. You're riddled with injuries. Owen Doyle, Paul Cribb and Kevin Flynn in bother. Cottle McNally, Ben McCormick are back, but don't know how much the game might come too soon for them. Then you've Jimmy Hyland, Kevin O'Callaghan, Fionn Dowell and Chris Healy, who are doubtful. Like, I mean, and then you've obviously Daniel Flynn, who didn't commit. You've Niall Kelly just back, who might not be long enough as well. It's upheaval. Like, I mean, it must be very frustrating as a Kildare supporter to see how close you could potentially be. I think you're a Super 8 team with everybody there easily. But it's hard to build on last year when you've lost so many players through injury and commitment, or like travel or whatever.
Yeah, and like you mentioned Daniel Flynn and you mentioned Niall Kelly, they're not just players, they're big players for Kildare. You know, Paul Cribben has been a big player in the past. You know, so that's big. There's talks of Owen Doyle. You know, he went off against Roscommon in the challenge match. He didn't play for Naas in the championship. I hear he might be okay. I'm not so sure. So he'd be a big plus. Again, Jimmy Hyland didn't play for Baltic, struggling with a little bit of a groin injury. But again, you'd be hopeful he might make it. Ben McCormick's only back again. Came on for starters. He's in the club championship, but again hasn't had much. Injured himself against Meath in the third game, I think, and hasn't played since. So you know, it's not great form to be coming into a championship. In saying all that, I expect us to be too good for Wicklow. I just think where we're at and where Wicklow are at is just the gap is too big. But it is frustrating. Like every team, you want your best team, and there's always going to be injuries. But when you read out a list like that, it's unreal. It's too much. Yeah.
And like, what's the perception of Cian O'Neill? Or like people in Kildare saying, look, he's doing his best with the hand he's been dealt. When we have a full team, we're able to compete with the best. It's just he doesn't have it. Are they patient with him?
There's both sides of the coin. There's patience, and then they're saying, well, look, he's here 4 years. Have we have we improved? Where exactly are we? an up and down league. Ended up going into the last game against Donegal with something to play for. If we won that, we got, I think, 11 points. We were well beaten on the day. So, and you know, supporters, like in any county, you win a match against the odds, you're great. You lose a match, you're no good. And so perception is, it's, you know, Keane is in his 4th year. We'd want to be at least making a good run to a Dublin team in a Leinster semi-final, and a good run into the Super 8s, or else maybe look at, you know, 4 years, is that enough? That I think that's sort of where it is at the moment.
Yeah, it's cutthroat. There's no balance. There's no balance with supporters, is there, Alan? Like, I mean, you're either, even though there's a big injury list, people aren't thinking about that. They're like, we have to do well against Dublin, and like with that injury list, you're at nothing going out against Dublin in a semi-final, and then people go, well, we've gone backwards from 2 years ago, instead of going, well, hang on, we've been decimated with injuries. We're not playing with a full hand.
Yeah, like it's funny at this time of year coming into the first round of championship to have so many injuries. Like it's however long it is since the end of the league. Like, why haven't they been kind of getting better over the last few weeks with a view to coming into this game? Maybe they are. Hopefully they are. But I think with that game, like Wicklow smell a bit of blood, like with the amount of guys missing. But as Johnny said, in saying that, like if you're picking a winner, you'd have to go with Kildare.
Yeah. Did you talk very much about, you know, in county squads, when you get 5 or 6 injuries, suddenly you have a team meeting about why you're having them, and then everything's dissected. Then, is our warm up right? Are we going? You know, I remember especially with Miko used to take if you were injured very personally, because he told us not to stretch. So he took it that you're almost insulting his not stretching policy by getting injured. But like, it was obviously directed. He didn't mind you stretching yourself, but he didn't do it as a group. So if you got injured, then he took this as a slight. But it was more around the Liam Kearns time. If there was injuries, everything will be dissected as, why is this happening, you know, and players will be talking about what might be the reason for it, and you can just be unlucky.
Yeah, I know, of course you can be unlucky, and injuries are part of the game, but I think it's part of a manager's job or a management team's job now to make sure they're liaising very closely with their physios and with their medical team to make sure they're getting their players back at the right time. Like for me, that just seems, coming into a first round of the championship, that's just too many guys injured for maybe they did a hard bank of training and picked up, I don't know, but
I'm not sure what they did, because they played all the league games for their clubs in April. You know, they'd still train with the county, and then you had a round of club championships in 2 weeks. Last weekend was for any team that didn't have a county representative, and then the weekend before was so.
Yeah, in fairness to Kildare, this April month, it's very close to the 11th of May, the first round of the championship. Yeah. Like, it's grand for Dublin to take April off, and they've 4 weeks leading into their game. But if you're coming back and you've 2 weeks and lads are training with their county playing league games,
Kildare do too much in April, I think, don't they? Much. And they play their championship games too late in April.
Yes, yeah. Well, you see, you have, like, if you look at the run up, so would say they play for their clubs, regardless, and it has been always the way after a club championship game, you're always going to get a few. That's the Tuesday night road off anyway. Then you've the Thursday, you've the weekend, and then the week of the match, so you're only keeping sharp. So you've lost that 2 weeks, really.
That's too much,
it's I think it's way too much.
Yeah,
you know?
No, it definitely is. So we'll all go for Kildare there. I think that's an obvious one. Next one then is Meath and Offaly, lads. Little funny sideshow to this is John Mahon versus Meath, which obviously 96-97 he doesn't have good memories. He was talking about his relationship with Sean Boylan. This is just an aside. He said Sean had the uncanny knack of portraying a lovely warm image, and you'd mistakenly assumed that he was like that on the field as well as off it, but I'm sure he wouldn't have had the success had he not been ruthless and totally committed to getting the best out of his teams. That just made me laugh about Sean Boylan. Like, he's the warmest, nicest fella, and you know, completely not like that. That's not, the same teams reflect their manager. So like, Sean was obviously different inside in the dressing room as he was kind of outside it. We'd go for Meath here, obviously, lads. Like, I mean, you're talking Division 1 now versus Division 3. In fairness, I think it'll be closer than like any sort of cakewalk. I'm still not 100% convinced of Meath. I know they're improving. I still think they're a little bit off Kildare when it comes to full teams being out, but they've definitely made a lot of improvements. Like, Newman at full forward has given them a new dynamic in the league final, give lovely long ball in there, and seem to have a running game and a kicking game, which obviously in the game now, without a bit of variety, Johnny, you're at nothing. And we know Offaly will go out, according to John Mahon, and they just play a traditional brand of football. There'll be no huge defensive kind of tactics. So I think this could be one of the games of the weekend, and I think it'll be more competitive than some people think.
Yeah, I like what Andy McAtee is doing in Meath. He's brought, I suppose, he looks to be anyway trying to, there's a little vision of the McAtees are back, and Jerry and the old Meath. There's going to be a toughness here, and he really seems to have got the county behind him. And just looking on Twitter, and says, they're inviting all the kids to bring a ball to the matches, and all of a sudden we're all in this together, and this is Meath, and and it's certainly there's a bit of power in that. We talked earlier about the getting crowds at matches, and they're back in Division 1 for the first. So there's definitely the graph is going in the right direction for them. I think they'll have too much for Offaly at the weekend, but it's one, after a successful league campaign, you can get caught on it thinking, because there's a lot of young lads in there and thinking, this is a formality, and going into a Leinster Championship game, bar your Kerry maybe or Dublin or one of the big things, formalities, you have to go and do the business, and that's the only thing I'd say going into it, but I still expect Meath to win it.
Yeah, the danger for me is that they hit the league maybe this year like championship games, and then what other level do you have to go to? And you can get caught. Johnny's right in that regard. If you're banging on the dressing room, and I don't know what they're doing in the dressing room or like how, but they definitely target the league, wanted to get out of it because they've been stuck too long. When the league finishes, really, there has to be another level that you go to, Alan, isn't there?
Yeah, no, and I think in fairness, Andy McAtee, like, he took Ballybowden a few years ago, took them to the All Ireland final. They're definitely on an upward curve with them. They probably had a difficult year last year, but I think, as I said, he's had a year and a half at it now, and he's starting to put a stamp on it, and they're definitely on an upward curve. I expect them to have way too much for Offaly, to be honest with you. And like, if I was to pick a contender that might challenge Dublin in the game in Croke Park, I think for me it's Meath ahead of Kildare this year.
Look, that's the old tradition coming out in
but
you. That's 91 all over
no,
again.
I think Johnny's right. I think he is starting to build something. He's putting his own stamp on it. There's a harder edge to them than we've seen in
and they've a new coach in this year. He's handed over the football coach, and I can't think of his name. Colm Nally, that's it. Yeah, so
he's a really good coach.
He's taken over this year, and a lot of people are putting the credit down to that, because Andy had 3 years with them, and to be honest, they weren't improving. Like, if anything, last year they were gone way backwards, losing to Longford, and did a good game against Tyrone at home.
Is this his second year or third year?
Or maybe it's the third year. The first 2 years. 2 years didn't seem to be improving an awful lot. Yeah,
well, I suppose it definitely takes a manager a year, because you can have perceptions of different players from the outside. When you go in and work with them and you think, okay, I have this lad, and next thing, Jenny, he's not the player maybe I thought he was, and that takes, so it's it takes a manager definitely a year and a half to find out, you talk about this, who's going to be still there when the really tough football comes, and it takes you a while. But I certainly think Meath, some of their, if they sat down to start the year, to get to Division 1 would have been a massive thing for them, and they're on the opposite side to Dublin and Kildare. A Leinster final, they're thinking, get Dublin, let's worry about that, but that's a realistic goal. We're back in, and all of a sudden the whole swell of Meath, it's Dublin Meath. Yeah. I'd say that's a little bit in the back of their mind as well.
And look, they're going very well at underage too. They're the one in the long term Dublin might need to be looking over their shoulder at, although Kildare are going well at underage as well. But Meath have good minor teams now, and they've started from the bottom, and they're trying to get it back right as well. So long term, we might have a Leinster Championship just as we're about to abandon it. Right, so Ulster Championship, lads, Tyrone Derry. This is BBC deferred game. It's on at 4 o'clock, but we'll be able to see this, because obviously we don't see any football for the first while. It's all Munster hurling, which I don't have a problem with. I don't know if you have a problem with that. Do you like to sit down and watch Munster hurling?
Yeah,
I love it.
I do. I watch it. Yeah,
but we are the correlation during May. There's no promotion for Gaelic football at all. So at least BBC have come to the rescue, and they're showing.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to watch both.
Yeah, it would, yeah. Yeah, but I suppose
we're not asking for a huge amount of watching.
You can, because they're both on at 4, Johnny. So, unless you want to flick between two channels. Tyrone Derry, lads, we're looking again. Tyrone obviously changed their style this year. They're one of the teams that people think could potentially beat Dublin. They've obviously performed well against them in the league before and not been able to do it in the championship. So that's completely, hypothetical. But they've definitely shown another side of their game, variety. McShane, outstanding pair of hands, almost Donaghy-esque with bombs, not even brilliant diagonal balls, sometimes he's able to catch them. So they have a new dynamic, which for me makes them hugely exciting coming into the championship. They'll have too much for Derry. It's at home. They always seem to beat Derry, since 2006. So I'd be fancying Tyrone strongly here.
Yeah, I'd be the same. I think so too. I suppose it'll be interesting to see, obviously that long ball to the full forward line, now there's no offensive mark. Would that change the dynamic?
I talked with Mickey Hart recently, and he thinks not. He thinks you should still be able to, because some of the balls going in, I think it was their last goal against Galway, wasn't caught clean but caused enough problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He thinks not. I still think that it's a free shot with the mark, and they are a conservative team. I still think it might cause a little bit of problem with them.
Yeah, I think it changes the mindset of the player delivering the ball more so than the inside man. I think if you're putting it in there, there's a chance of a mark, and as you said, when you have someone in there that's it's going to feel him. It certainly does. I just wonder will they use that style as much as they did in the league, which is effective. Now maybe they will, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's probably harder. It's probably harder to play that style of game in maybe a tighter ground up the north as well. I think where it worked best for them was obviously against Dublin in the wide space of Croke Park, and I'd expect to see lots of it once they get back to Croke Park. But I think yourself in the Ulster Championship, like those games always take on a life of their own, and it never comes easy. Like Tyrone will win, but it'll be
it worked against
make it difficult.
It worked against Dublin because Dublin are one of the more offensive teams, but it actually worked against Galway as well, funnily enough, because Galway's tactics are to bring everybody back and almost line them up along the 45. So there's actually a space to hit over these. You know what I mean? They're not too deep. They're waiting around to turn you over there. So I don't know. I just like the idea of getting the few in there. You know what I mean? Get it in there,
and even if it's not one, it's all of a sudden it's breaking. And then you see defensively, because we've gone so far away from that long ball in. Fullbacks probably are not. This is nearly alien to them now.
Yeah.
You're not set up maybe to defend that sort of an aerial threat. So. I'd be like you. Sometimes you just have to put boot the ball and take a chance.
Get it in there, and that definitely seems to work. And so we'll all go to Tyrone there. To be fair, all these predictions, lads, are pretty easy this week because, they're all look like fairly one-sided games. Tipperary, Limerick. Tipperary haven't improved really at all, but they're a bit like Kildare. They've had a whole lot of injuries. They can't get everybody together. But Liam Curran says he's got a 100% squad now. Josh Keane is back. Quinlivan was back towards the end of the league. Shane O'Connell, Gavin Whelan, Robbie Kiley's back from travelling, and Bill Maher, who I think is an outstanding, exciting wing back. That's some list of players who you're not. See, again, you always kind of, Liam Curran is an improving them, and then you read the injury list and go it's not fair. It's not really fair with a squad that Kildare and Tip cannot miss 5-6 of your starting team.
No, and there's very few squads can. I certainly think that it's only when you list those names that you see the level that, because they're nearly household names. And so that's the level they've come to, and I suppose where is the next level for Tipperary. But certainly if they can get those guys, the Quinlivans, the Conor Sweeneys, all these guys, Bill Maher, all these guys back on the field is a massive plus for them.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So we'll all go Tipperary there, lads. Obviously Limerick aren't going brilliantly. Clare, Waterford, won't spend too much time there. We know Clare are a very good team. They're at home to Waterford, which you would think would be one side as well. Roscommon, Leitrim is an interesting one, Alan, because you tipped Leitrim for this one in the Evening Herald, which you're outstanding columnist for, by the way.
I was looking for. You
wanted to pull a rabbit out of the hat,
an early season ambush, and like we spoke about the start of the championship, there wasn't too many jumping out at me. But I think, look, Leitrim after their good National League, I think obviously confidence will be high. They have a bit of momentum behind them, and they'll see that game as, right, lads, here's a chance where we could actually take down one of the top teams.
Dr. Hyde turned me off that.
The fact it's home for us, Roscommon probably is.
If it's on Carrick, you'd be given some bit of a chance.
And Leitrim have a really, really top class forward in Ryan O'Rourke. He's a really good guy, a classy finisher, and to win anything you need top
forwards,
and he is good. I still think Roscommon will, but if you were looking for an upset, you'd be thinking that would be the one.
I'm going for Leitrim. I'm going for Leitrim.
I was thinking
I'm going for Roscommon after saying that.
I was thinking if there was an upset, it could be Offaly, lads. I don't know. I actually tipped Meath for relegation. I don't know, and they impressed me in the league final in the first half. They're outstanding. Now I don't think Offaly will beat them, but I think if you were going to look for a close one of the games to be close, it might be that. Leitrim, I was wondering, the handicap here is 7 according to Paddy Power. Roscommon beat them by 14 last year. Now, Leitrim have improved no end this year, and Roscommon had a decent league, but you can't really base it off league either. Have Leitrim improved enough to have that, and you even turn around 14, it's probably doubtful for me, especially in Dr. Hyde Park, which is Obviously, Roscommon will be fairly strong there.
But and they've a decent manager in Terry Hyland who's has a lot of experience and
he's a good track record.
He has, and again it goes back to that belief, and you know he's someone that would probably instill that belief in them, or give them a little bit of belief, and I think that can add a lot of weight to a team.
Yeah. Okay. So me and Johnny go Roscommon, Alan's going Leitrim. There. We will go, so Wexford Louth, this is the last one, lads. Wexford have 100% injury positive report, so they've nobody injured. The interesting thing about this game, lads, is that Colin Kelly is coaching Wexford. So he obviously managed Louth and finished, he got them promoted 2 years in a row, but I think he left them then after 2 years, and he put his name in the hat for the Louth under-21s this year and didn't get it. Hope I have that one right again. So after that then he lands onto the Wexford coaching team, who play his own county Louth in the first round of the championship. So that adds a bit of spice to that. This is the one which I fancy Louth, but obviously this is one where you'd be going, at least there's more of a conversation about who might win.
I think Colin's obviously a proud Louth man, I know him, and that's probably going to be a difficult game for him personally to
well, I don't know. I think his nose is out of joint with these under-21s.
Yeah, I'm not sure it works like that though, Willie, when you come back to play your own county. But he, probably neither county is probably going particularly well at the moment. But I suppose if you're to pick one, I'd probably side with Louth as well. I think Wexford have probably regressed over the last 4 or 5 years, and it might end up being a difficult day.
Yeah. So with the under-21s, he was nominated. A club nominated him to manage the under-21s this year, but the county board didn't even contact him to see was he interested. That is out of order. It's out of order. He did well with Louth. Now the championship they didn't perform as well as they can, but he won Division 4 and Division 3, got them into Division 2, and then they went down the following year under Pete
And you would
McGrath.
imagine guys of his calibre, like certainly with his playing pedigree, and he'd done a decent job as manager with Louth, they wouldn't be falling out of the sky in Louth. I wouldn't think so. To push a guy away like that seems like a very strange decision for me. But so sometimes you don't know the internal politics of exactly what's going on.
You just don't know what legacy was there, or what way it finished the last regime. You know, you just don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. So who are we going for this one, lads? Louth, I suppose.
I'm going to go Louth.
Yeah, I think so. I think Wexford. And I know Paul McLaughlin, soldier for Kildare for years, is managing them, and he's done a lot of good work, but I think their league has been very, very poor. And
they don't have anyone anymore, do they? They've
no Kieran Ling or Red Barry or these boys, you know.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be too much of an ask for them.
It'll be difficult. It's like Paul McLaughlin trying to get some experience. Wexford probably a difficult county to go and kind of improve anything with. So we'll all go for Louth with that. Right, lads, that's it. Looking forward to the championship, even though it's not blowing us away this weekend. And to be fair, after us going through all those results, could you compete with Munster hurling with that list of fixtures? Right, okay, we'll be back on Monday. I'm sure Keane will be back, and we'll probably focus on Tyrone Derry, because that's the only one that we'll have seen on the telly. We'll talk to you then. Good luck.